Hi, I'm Gerald Bentley. This is Wrestling with Sales. We're being brought in by Bear and Company. You can find them on iTunes. Today, we want to talk about, are you in selling shape? Are you able to go? Can you go the whole 60 minutes? Make a lot of wrestling analogies. I mean, sometimes they'll have an Iron Man match for the championship, right? You have to go 60 minutes, make it the whole way through. Ric Flair used to talk about how he could go 60 minutes, could style and profile his way all the way through the match. Can you make it through an 8-hour day of sales? A lot of people can't. That's why I wanted to talk with Michael Wilcoxon from HulkBuilt. He's a personal trainer and he works with sales professionals. Michael, hey, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Glad to have you on. I mean, it's just the thing that came to mind, and to personally reflect on it. I've been in car sales now for over 20 years, but I was a college athlete, and when you're a college athlete, you work out like crazy. I would work out 4 or 5 hours a day.
Yes.
So I think I developed some bad habits, right? Because if you're working out that much, the dietary habits kind of get glossed over. And in that era, back in the 90s, college, even at the D1 level, the nutritionalists weren't what they are now. We would have a lot of pizza, we'd have a lot of pasta, and you were eating so much, it just didn't matter because it was probably burning. I mean, heck, I was probably burning 3,000 calories a day, so I could eat whatever I wanted. I started right before COVID as the GSM at a dealership, and they did a health screening. And I saw the results, went, oh my God, that's terrible. Yep. My blood sugar was touching pre-diabetes. My blood pressure was way too high. My weight was way more than I thought it should be. And it was just a wake-up call that, okay, hang on, stop. I gotta get working. And fortunately, I had at least some idea of what to do because I had done it years ago. And I've lost about 45 pounds. I weighed myself last night. So from the high, I've dropped about 45 pounds. But I'm still about 20 pounds more than I competed at. Last weight I wrestled at was 215. So I'm still, a little bit heavy. Too heavy. I should really be down at that 215 mark. But at least I've been able to claw it down to where it's manageable. Do you see that a lot? Is that something that a lot of your clients deal with?
Yes. So what's funny is the one thing I'm just going to leave with this. So I do online coaching. The one thing all my clients have in common is they're giving so much of their careers, their businesses, their family. I work with like 4 providers right now, a ton of engineers, a lot of analytical people, a lot of high performing people, right? And by the way, I don't think I told you this. I actually played football at the University of Texas. So I was a D1 college
athlete. Didn't know that. Oh, yes. You were a way higher D1 college athlete than me.
Hey,
the Longhorns.
It's all the same amount of work, whether you're D1, D2, D3, doesn't matter. But yeah, hook them. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I actually keep I don't wear this a lot, but I actually have my T ring from when I used to play, like I lettered and did all that stuff. So
awesome.
So yeah. But I actually played defensive tackle, and I was one of those guys. I was just like you, where whenever you're younger or when you're an athlete, you can kind of just eat whatever you want. And then I've seen a lot of athletes continue to eat that way in the future. And it's funny, some of the clients that I actually work with are ex-D1 athletes themselves, and a lot of them gain weight after they played. And I actually have several of them right now that are doing fantastic. But to really answer your question, yes, I find that most people's diets are terrible. I think the normal standard American diet is really bad. And then what a lot of people do is they go on these fad diets like keto. And look, if you look in the background, you'll see the keto Hulk. I used to go by that because I had to look smaller when I did modeling. And then this is the difference is carbs, and carbs are not evil, but most people go on these diets that are not sustainable. They go from one extreme to the other where they eat terrible and then they try to eat perfect. And let me just tell you, there's no perfect meal plan. It's what works with your lifestyle. What can you do consistently? That's the most important thing. But most people come to me eating a ton of processed foods, They don't drink enough water. So now their body mistakes thirst for hunger. A lot of them don't get sleep. And I was talking about neglecting themselves and putting everybody else first. If we reduce the amount of friction first and we get you feeling better by eating the right amount and not going from one extreme high calories to way low, and then we actually get you to sleep and recover properly, now your brain's functioning properly and you have more energy, and then we actually get you drinking enough water where your body's not mistaking thirst for hunger. Do you see how now it's a lot easier to be consistent?
Mm-hmm.
You're not fighting yourself all the time. And sorry, I know I kind of took over there, but these are the
No, it's
things I
terrific.
see all the time, Gerald, is people put themselves last and they feel like they're being selfish, but it's the same analogy as you see whenever someone is on an airplane. You put your mask on first so you can get oxygen, so you can take care of other people and serve people at a higher level, right?
That's a good analogy. Yeah. And
Yes. Go ahead.
what I've noticed a lot too is you were saying the diet. It's amazing. There's so many people because sales, if you're going to really be effective at it, and this is selling anything,
Yeah.
you have to be able to match or raise the energy of the person you're working with. You know, get into another wrestling analogy, amateur wrestling. You talk a lot about changing levels. You got to get lower than the person that you're wrestling against so you can take them down. In
Mhm.
sales, you got to be higher. You have to have more energy because you have to project that, hey, this is the right decision. You're doing the right thing. I'm going to help you. I'm going to get you through it. If you have no energy, you don't do that. And you can see it when you're watching. If you watch on videos, if you listen to recorded phone calls, or you're just sitting at a sales desk watching, you can just see the body language, the mannerisms of the salesperson as they're just like drifting away. And I think a lot of that comes from many dealerships. The majority of the physical activity that a salesperson gets in the day is walking over and grabbing the 2 donuts at breakfast, slamming a
Exactly.
cup of coffee down, and
Yeah.
then sitting down and watching videos. And I mean, you just can't do that. What's the best way to, in your opinion, to start the day? Because I think a lot of it really starts there. If you come in at a bad start, the day's not going to get better.
Yes, exactly. You're 100% correct about that, Gerald. But first off, I want to let you know I was a top salesperson at 3 companies. My background sales, I know you didn't know that as well. Um, and I actually used to stutter so bad I could barely talk. And
Hmm.
I actually worked on my diet heavily. And that's one thing that helped me. And I was always working on these things previously. My degrees in fitness, health promotion. Um,
Okay.
I come from a really unhealthy a lot of my family wasn't the healthiest. Type 2 diabetes ran heavily in my family. And that's why I actually started this. I've been coaching for 10 years and I've been doing this for a long time. But I made all the mistakes where I had a really low energy level. I felt like crap all the time. I made all the mistakes from going super low calorie or super high. There was never like a happy medium that I could be consistent with. And so that's why I tried all these different things. Like I tried keto previously. I tried all these things. But one thing I noticed when I was doing sales is I saw like 9 or 10 people die at the. I worked at an inside sales office. I saw 9 or 10
Yeah.
people die, and I was like, I am not going to be one of those people. And not to mention, I saw a lot of people. Their sales numbers, just like you were talking about, would go down because when they talked, um, I, I, I'm a firm believer. It's not just what you say, but it's how you say it. And people can feel like if you're confident, people can feel that. If you're not confident and your energy level's low, people can feel that even through the phone, face to face, whatever it is. If you knock the door, one of the knocking doors is one of the toughest things. I've done all of
Hmm.
that. But
Absolutely.
but the thing is, when I noticed when I was confident, I took care of myself and I had plenty of energy starting the day out, eating something healthy, focusing on whole foods, not focusing on processed breads and all these things. It doesn't mean that you can't eat those, but if we focus on 80 or 90% whole foods, things like eggs, as long as you don't have a sensitivity to it. You see all these superfoods, if you have a sensitivity to things, I think most people should figure out what they're sensitive to, where it causes inflammation and
Sure.
it brings their energy levels down. But I think people should eat healthy things like fruits, like low glycemic fruits, like berries, apples. Start with some good protein, some healthy fats, maybe some almond butter. If you do have some breads, you can have some something that's really either whole grain or sprouted grain. It's a lot healthier.
Okay.
And then maybe some eggs. I like to have a little bit more fats and proteins in the morning with a little bit of carbohydrates. But really, at the end of the day, it's what you're eating throughout the day. Are you eating the right amount of calories for your activity level in your body? And then also, are you having a well balanced diet approach, fats, carbs, and proteins? And usually I like to do high protein, moderate fat, and then whatever's left over, we do carbohydrates. And how many calories you eat is based on activity level, how much you're working out, all those things matter.
Yeah.
So it's hard to just give a generalized answer. But at the end of the day, I always tell my clients, have 80 or 90% whole foods. Make sure you drink enough water. If you take your body weight and divide it by 2, body weight in pounds divided by 2, that's how many ounces you should drink. And then add 15 ounces for every hour of physical activity. And that way you're getting enough water. And then we focus on sleep and all these habits. All these things are important. They all connect. And that way you don't have to go extreme and work out 2 hours a day. You can work out a few times per week, 45 minutes. If you're eating healthy and your meal plan's where it needs to be, you're walking, getting some steps in, just doing some simple things, you can go really far with that. You don't have to kill yourself and be in the gym all the time.
Now, hey, talking about how many calories you burn.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people really like the Apple Watch and the fitness tracker.
Yeah.
Do you think, is there a magic number? I mean, is 10,000 steps in a day all that important, or is it more just making sure that you are getting up and moving around throughout the day? Because the other thing that I see a lot, and this is true in call centers, at dealerships, especially any kind of computer job, you get locked into your desk and you're just not moving. And not saying this judgmentally at all, because this happens all over, just trying to be helpful. I know personally, because I've had 12 knee surgeries, I need to get up and walk around like every hour, or my legs kind of lock up. But it is easy just to sit there. How often should you be moving around? What would you say is like the minimum bar of activity throughout the day?
So I think it depends on where someone's at. And I always like to say your fitness age. And when I say this, it's not about bro science. All this stuff's backed by science that I say, and also just working with people, what works. So I always say if you haven't really focused on steps before, you can start at 5,000. But I think a good happy medium is about 8,000. Okay. Obviously, everything is dependent on your goals. If you're just trying to do it performance and just stay healthy and longevity, that's going to look different than someone who's trying to lose weight and trying to lose fat versus someone who's trying to build muscle. It's all dictated, and even your meal plan is dictated by what are you trying to accomplish right now. Okay. Or if someone's been in a huge caloric deficit, they're barely eating any calories. A lot of people don't actually eat enough. And then so many people eat too much. There's too much extreme. Okay. We like to find a happy medium. But what I personally do is I try to focus on 8,000 steps per day. I do just 20 minutes cardio per day, nothing crazy with 8,000 steps. Why do I not like to just focus on cardio? The difference between cardio and getting your steps in are also known as NEAT. It's non-exercise activity thermogenesis. You don't have to know all this. I'm just explaining the reason and purpose for it.
Well, it's a good acronym.
Yeah, and then EAT is exercise activity thermogenesis. The main difference between those two is heart rate. So the higher your heart rate in general gets, the deeper the deficit you're creating, or the bigger hole you have to shovel back in for recovery. All right. So if someone is out of shape, they haven't done much, I'd rather them start with steps in, because adaptation, meaning muscle gain, fat loss, performing at a high level, does not occur at a high level if you're not recovering. When you go to the gym,
you're going to burn everything that you build.
Exactly. So the main thing I see people do is they're either doing like 6 days a week and they're not recovering. And so sometimes I'll get a client and I'm like, I want you to start out with 2 days a week. And they're like, yeah, but I've been doing all this. I'm like, yes, but what you're doing is not working. Your body's in a stress state. Let's focus on your sleep, your water consumption. Let's get your nutrition. Let's actually have you eat more calories first. Let's have you feel good. And let me ask you this question. Whenever you feel good and you're well rested, are you usually hangry? No. Do you usually make good decisions, or do you do what's convenient?
Should make better decisions, right?
Usually make better decisions, right? And also when you're talking to a client, are you usually in a better mood, or do you have mood swings where you're not eating enough, you're burning the candle at both ends, and you feel like crap? Usually make better decisions. You can communicate better and you're in a better mood. All this comes through in the way you walk, the way you stand, all these things. And that's why a lot of times when people come to me, they think they have to kill themselves, but I'm like, no. Let's go ahead and recover first, focus on sleep. Let's focus on the basics, set that foundation, and then let's build on top of that. And then maybe we go to 3 days a week, maybe 4 days a week. I meet them where they're at, because here's the thing. Everyone that's listening right now is at different levels. Mm-hmm. Some people don't do anything. So if you're one of those people, go and start with 5,000 steps per day. Yeah, walk half a mile to a mile per day, and then you can build on that. But adaptation, again, all this stuff's only going to work if you are recovering properly and you feel good. Now you're going to make better decisions. You're not going to take the easy route. You're going to actually do what you need to do, and you're going to have more of a growth mindset and be able to push and progress. Just like when you start sales, you start with the training wheels on, right? You have
Sure.
to make a lot of phone calls. You make a lot of mistakes, but over time, your closing percentage goes up. You get better. You get more confident. And guess what? Whenever you do these things, because consistency is way more important than being perfect. If you're consistent all the time, guess what happens? You build trust with the most important person, which is who? You.
Your customer and you.
Yeah, yes. So all right. So I'm talking from the client perspective, but from a sales perspective, the most important person to build trust with is your client, because know, like, and trust, which I'm sure you talk about these things all the
Absolutely.
time.
Sure.
But if you don't trust yourself, and if you can't just do the basics like going to sleep on time, saying you're going to eat that meal, just not hitting the snooze button, because every day you have an opportunity to build trust or lose trust with yourself. You say you're going to wake up at 7, you wake up at 8 o'clock. Did you gain or lose trust with yourself that day?
Hey, lost.
Yes. And then when you go to a sales call and you try to teach someone, or you're trying to sell someone something, and you don't even believe in yourself, are they going to believe and buy in you if you don't trust yourself? Probably not.
No.
So these are the things that we talk about. Yeah.
And when you start lying to yourself and compromising with yourself, then it's really easy to lie and compromise with everybody else because you're not
Yes.
even holding true to yourself. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Exactly. So all this starts at like very basic things. A lot of people come to me and they think it's just about nutrition and, oh, what about workouts and this? And I'm like, do you trust yourself? Are you going to do the small things? Because all of it adds up over time. And that is the most important thing. I help people get out of their own way. And I'm only talking about this because sales, you have to trust yourself a lot. You're asking someone to spend money with you, and not by convincing them, which I don't know your exact model, but I know we probably share this, but you're doing this by finding out what they need, and you're a resource. And then now they're going to come to you when they need to buy a new car again because they trusted you last time, right?
Yeah, you're not talking anybody into doing something that they
No,
don't want to do. The
no.
biggest thing is you need to figure out what they actually want to do and then communicate that, hey, you're in the right place, you're making
Mhm.
the right decision, it's the right time. And if you don't have that mental acuity, if you don't have the, I'd say, verbal muscle memory, is
Yeah.
in athletics, there were certain things that you didn't get coached anymore. It was just assumed you know what to do when the play starts. In wrestling, you knew, okay, hey, if this is opening, go. You didn't have to get coached. You didn't have to get coached to say, hey, the person's open up, you do a leg takedown.
Mhm.
It's assumed, you just do it. But in sales, you see a lot of times people are just kind of drifting and not really even paying attention. And the customer may say something like, well, hey, I've been looking at a lot of places and I really need to decide on a car.
Mhm.
And their question will be, uh, okay, so what's most important to you? They literally just said, I really need to decide on a car.
Yeah.
That's when you say, great, you're in the right place. Let me help you. But
Yes.
if you're just drifting along and honestly, heck, if you've already given up on yourself, you're just glossing over obvious buying cues and going through the motions because you want to check the box. Okay, I got to fill out this list for the
Yeah.
manager and I got to give a TO. And that customer who may have just said a half hour ago, oh, yeah, hey, I really need to buy a car. We've been looking a long time. Salesperson will walk them up to the desk and go, yeah, we didn't really see anything they liked, but hey, this is the manager and I wanted to introduce you. And amazingly, that happens. And then you just kind of go, huh, oh man, this is terrible. I give up. And I think you see that mentality just kind of creeping in. And
Mhm.
it starts now, again, not to pick apart people, but it starts with the two donuts, the couple of smokes, and the cup of coffee in the morning, and then sitting down. I mean, you really do have to dedicate
That's,
yourself to it. If you were playing on a team, anyone who was in, a lot of people in sales were in some sort of athletics,
I've
you
noticed
would
that. Yeah.
practice, you would work out. It's the same thing. You're just not playing on a field or in a ring. You're playing in whatever area of sales you're in.
Mhm.
And you do have to practice and you have to maintain I mean, some level of fitness because you have to be able to stay awake and just
Yeah.
alert throughout the day. I've literally seen salespeople falling asleep at their desk at multiple dealerships throughout the day. And if you're in your 30s or 40s and it's 2 o'clock, bright light, in a noisy environment, and you're falling asleep at your desk, that's not good.
No, exactly, and it all starts like you said with the donut. Because after you eat a donut or two, what happens 2 or 3 hours later after insulin goes up and it crashes? How do you feel? And then you feel tired and lethargic. Now, carbs are not evil, but what's happening is a lot of, and one thing I'll say for a lot of people, could we agree that that sales can be stressful sometimes?
Sure. So you
Are
get
there
to
some
stress
people?
eating.
Yes. Are there some people that are just difficult? Yes. You're dealing with people. You're dealing with humans. It's part of the human experience. But carbohydrates help you deal with stress more than any other macronutrient. Macronutrients are protein, fat, and carbs. Now,
Okay.
carbs are not evil, but you want to eat the right kind of carbs.
And
So
what would
berries,
those be?
yes, berries, fruit, and you want to have them at the right times. So if we know carbohydrates relieve stress, um, we should have the right amount throughout the day, but at the right times. Maybe a little bit closer to. A lot of people are actually scared to eat carbs at night, but as long as you don't slam them and have some really unhealthy ones, you have a little bit of berries before you go to sleep. It can actually help you sleep because it lowers cortisol levels, the main stress hormone.
Okay.
So it can actually be utilized properly, but it's all about energy balance, and then focusing on mainly whole foods because it digests a little bit slower. I could get into the science behind this. I'm a super nerd with this stuff. That's why I
Yeah.
work with a lot of analytical people. I don't want to dive too deep because
No,
it
that's
goes
fine.
over a lot of people's head. All these things that work what I'm talking about, because most of my clients are very busy. They don't have a lot of time, and they need this to work at a high level. And most of them are trying to lose weight during that. So we have them do it with as many calories as possible where they feel better. And like I said, we remove that sense of friction.
And then people can reach out to you on what's the best way to reach out to you? Is it Facebook? Is it
Yeah. Facebook, my profile is obviously, you can see right here, Michael Wilcoxon, but also on Instagram, it's at HulkBuilt. That's
okay?
my brand. I used to go by the Keto Hulk, and everybody wanted me to do keto, and I'm like, that's not a good long-term solution. I just did it for modeling when I needed to look smaller.
Yeah.
Um, but those are the two best places to reach out to me.
Okay. Well, hey, we're gonna hit a couple of other areas too. I did
Yeah.
want to get into, you see the Montway Auto Transport logo just above us, and they are a key contributor to the Wrestling with sales. Wanted to make sure that we give them their due because that's another part of it, right? You have to make sure that you're getting your vehicles to the lot. So, hey, auto dealers, do you know where your vehicles are and when they'll arrive? I know the inventory management challenges dealers face, so I'm certain the answer right now is a resounding no. But Montway Auto Transport can change your answer to a confident yes with the Montway Automation Portal, better known as MAP. MAP offers a smarter way to move and manage orders while giving you end-to-end visibility of all inbound and outbound units. You can upload VINs, get pricing, dispatch the orders, and track every unit on the dashboard. Leveraging MAP can save you time and money and get vehicles to your lots quicker to sell. With MAP, you can book, track, and manage your inventory from one revolutionary platform. You can see MAP in action at www.montway.com/map. Go ahead and write this down, www.montway.com/map, and put your dealership on the map. And if you didn't get that web address, it's obviously right up there in the corner of the screen, Montway Auto Transport, and they're going to help you get your vehicles to and from where you need to be because right now there's still no inventory, so everybody's trucking cars in. So we know how we can get the vehicles to and from the lot. I guess the question I want to ask you is, to start the day, what's the best way for you to get to the lot and be ready to go? What do you recommend for morning workouts? And I have a friend who gets up every day and does CrossFit at 5 a.m. I
Mhm.
get up and I use the light boxer right behind me, a boxing machine, and then you can see my bike handle there. I have an elliptical, so I'll get in about most days about 45 minutes of workout before I go to work. And I find it helps really helps loosen up all the sports injuries that I had, so I can make it through and walk through the day. But what do you feel as a professional is a good level of exercise and fitness to put in each day?
Well, again, obviously it depends on where you're coming from and your training age. And again, your training age is not your age, it's how long you've been training consistently and working out. Okay. So let's say you're 40 years old, you started working out 2 years ago. That means your training age is 2 years and what you've been. So you have to take that into account. But for most people, what I like to say is at least 2 or 3 times per week. Some of the people I work with only have enough time for 2 or 3 days. So really what I mean by that is what can you be consistent with your schedule right now? That is the most important thing. But one thing that I really want to focus on also that I think is very important is most people just do cardio, but we also have to focus on resistance training. Cardio is good for your heart. It burns some extra calories. That's good. Getting your steps in. Again, we're not going to dig as deep of a hole for recovery,
Yeah.
but getting resistance training is going to be very important. And if you had to pick one or the other, I would rather someone focus on resistance training and getting their steps in than even cardio. Why is that? Because you're building bone mineral density. Also, if people are trying to lose weight, you're giving your body a signal to maintain your muscle mass as you age, which is really important to be able to stay
Okay.
active and mobile. All those things are really important, but what you're going to be consistent with, and what I mean by that is some people are going to go to the gym, whether it's a home workout, body weight, all are going to be great. But the most important thing is what can you be consistent with? Get some resistance training, and then get your steps in. And then if you have time, get your cardio in as well. I would say 2 or 3 times a week. If you're more advanced, 4 to 5 days, depending on your schedule and how much time you have.
Okay. And what would you say is the best resistance exercise to do? If you're going to set up a home gym, you're going to do some weights. What weights would you recommend? Dumbbells, a little bench. I've got a total gym too. It's just out of
Oh,
camera.
awesome. Yeah, all are good options, but I prefer either barbells or dumbbells, having a bench. If you don't have a lot of time and you have to be really efficient, and you can work out 3 days a week. Bench, squats, deadlifts are some of the best. Obviously, only with good form. Anything that you do, you have to ask, is the reward versus the risk for what I'm trying to do? If someone's never deadlifted and they don't know how, I'm not going to have them deadlift, right?
Yeah.
But I think dumbbells are great, specifically those ones where have you ever seen the ones where you can pull the thing out and it goes from 50 pounds down to 5 pounds and it's just in one stack? Those are fantastic. They don't take up a lot of space. Resistance bands are really good. And especially if you don't have a lot of room, and resistance bands, dumbbells, and just barbells, you don't need a crazy amount of things to be in great shape. Kettlebells are a really good option. They're all equally as good. I prefer using dumbbells and going to the gym, but all are going to be a good, all work well. There's not just one way to do things is really what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Okay, somebody's looking at this and they're doing nothing right now.
Yeah.
They're going to get started and they're going to start tracking their steps.
Yeah.
Go ahead and take, maybe 5,000 steps here, where I was at. And so this would have been just before COVID, when I got hired to be the GSM at a Kia dealership. And I had been at another dealership, and I just honestly, you don't realize how much you're just sitting around, and while I was running the other dealership, I gained 30 pounds. I went from a big dealership in the city to a smaller dealership in basically an ex-urban area, and I ended up sitting at the desk a lot. And I always assumed, okay, well, hey, I'm staying healthy because I was going to the Y 2 days a week on my day off and doing an hour of elliptical and doing the circuit machines. But I had been set to that. So just doing that wasn't enough to overcome the inactivity at work and the bad diet habits. When I had that health screening, it was just a huge wake-up call, and I had to restart. Somebody who's in that same position, what should they do from a start to get going?
I always like to do the path of least resistance. Like, I think it's great going out and buying all these things, but if that's not in your budget, just start with some body weight workouts. Then once you're consistent and you've proven that you can do it, then make a financial investment into that. So simple body weight, then you can progress to bands, even cheaper. Then you can progress to dumbbells. Because if you have a set of 5, 10, or 15-pound dumbbells, you have room to grow, and eventually you're going to outwork those, and they're going to get way too easy. And then you can progress up from there. So I would say start with body weight. Then and then after that you can go to bands, and then you can go to dumbbells. That would be a perfect progression. And either way, there's no right order, but I always like to do that because a lot of my clients, we meet in the middle, and some of them have equipment, some of them have body weight, and they all get great results as long as you follow the same fundamental principles. Is your nutrition, your calories where they need to be? Are you getting enough steps in? Are you doing cardio a few times a week? And are you doing resistance training a minimum of 2 to 3 times per week? If you do those things, whether it's body weight, dumbbells, or even resistance bands, you're going to get great results. And over time, you can go to the gym and, have access to all these more options and toys and keep things fresh. I think that's, optimal. But It's not just about doing what's optimal. It's about doing what you can do right now, what you can handle, and you can always build up to that.
Talked about body weight, because I think when we say body weight, a lot of people are going to go and they're going to start doing push-ups and sit-ups.
Yeah.
Push-ups and sit-ups okay, or do you recommend something different?
Push-ups, sit-ups. Sit-ups aren't my favorite because a lot of people like pull. I always like to grab my earlobes. That way you're not pulling on your neck. But push-ups, sit-ups, a lot of squat variations, lunges, getting your hip mobility better, your ankle flexibility better. If you don't use it, you lose it. And especially as we age, we get tighter. Especially we have such a sedentary culture overall. I mean, just over time, every nation is getting more and more sedentary from being on a computer and being on these screens. Sure. I don't think it's a bad thing, but we have to work with that, not against it.
No, that's reality.
It's reality. So moving in multiple planes. So obviously I have plenty of room in my office. So what's working in a multiple plane, doing a forward lunge, doing a side lunge, different squat variations. There are just so many things you can do. You can grab a chair, do some dips. You're going to hit your triceps. You're going to hit a lot of different muscles. And then when you get dumbbells, you can do some overhead press. You could even do floor press, even if you don't have a bench to lay on. You can do bench on the ground. There's so many things you can do. That's why fitness is exciting. There's not just one way to do things.
How about, I got a product that I have too. I've got like every exercise gadget you can imagine.
Yeah.
What about the elliptical that goes underneath your desk and you just pedal your feet on the elliptical throughout the day? Does that benefit any, or does it really just kind of stretch your legs out?
All right. So I'm going to compare it to, have you ever seen people when they have some nervous energy? I'm ADHD. I talk a lot, you could probably tell. But a lot of business owners and a lot of people in sales do have ADHD. It's not a bad thing. We can hyper focus on certain things, but other things we're not interested in, a little bit harder. But have you ever seen someone tap their leg up and down, like they're just sitting there? Believe it or not, that actually burns. It can burn up to several hundred calories throughout the day. People who are constantly moving or twitching, they've actually found studies when people go too low in calories, they'll actually naturally their body, to protect itself, because it wants to achieve homeostasis and survive, you'll actually you'll start moving less because you have less energy. But I'm just comparing that. So if that burns calories, you just tapping your legs, so of course it's going to do something. I don't think it's optimal, but I think you're still going to burn a little bit extra calories, and you're moving, and so I think that's good. Yeah,
better than nothing.
Exactly, better than nothing. Yeah, because
one other thing that I've noticed is guys they'll have an epiphany. Oh God, hey, I need to get serious.
Mm-hmm.
Go work out. They're going to work out every day. I'm going to grind away every day.
Yeah.
And then come into work after 3-4 days of that, can't move because everything's so stiff, and then they're done. Oh, this is too hard. I can't do it. That happens a lot too, doesn't it?
Way too common. It's funny. I'll start with some people, and here's the thing. And a lot of you, I know a lot of you watching this, because you have been sedentary. A lot of you, I'm going to talk about weight loss because a lot of people want to do that. Everyone wants to do something so fast. Faster is not better. The faster you lose it, the faster you're going to gain it back. The more stressed your body is, the more it's going to hold on to things. Just like I talked about stress and cortisol, the stress hormone being super high, your body will not adapt. And it's funny, sometimes I'm going to use an extreme example. Sometimes I work with a client and they're not getting good sleep, they're really stressed out, I'll say, you know what? And they didn't lose weight the past 2 weeks because the scale weight, if you have extra sodium, the scale can go up, even if you're doing everything right. If you don't get sleep that stresses your body, the scale weight's going to go up. You're going to hold more water. There's various reasons. Scientifically, I'm not going to talk about those. If you're doing more activity than normal, the scale can go up. So let's say someone hasn't done anything and then they run a mile and then they're like, why didn't I lose weight? Your body is stressed. And then what I'll actually do is I'll say, you know what? I don't want you to do any physical activity this week. Just focus on your nutrition, get your steps in, but don't do cardio or don't do resistance training. Let's take the week off. It's going to benefit you. Boom. The next week they lose 2 or 3 pounds. Oh, wow. And now I'm showing them, hey, you recovered. You have to have time for recovery. When you work out, you're breaking down muscle tissue. And when you recover, when you sleep properly and give your body what it needs, that's when you're repairing the tissue. The results don't come in the gym. You're starting the cascade of benefits there, but where the benefits come from is when you recover from it. So whenever you start a few days a week and earn the right to add an extra day in as you've done it for 6, 8 weeks, multiple months in a row. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Let's kind of go back to the workday. So you started the day with the breakfast. When should you go get something to eat? Because, hey, an activity at dealerships everywhere is starting at about 11 o'clock. Okay, hey, what should we get for lunch? Where should we go? What should we do?
Yeah.
And then you see the guys come back in, usually guys, with a giant pork tenderloin sandwich, a basket of fries, and chow that down. And then it's sleepy time at about 2:30. What should be the lunch at the dealership during the day?
All right. So in terms of an exact time, there's not really an exact time. And I'm just going to share what I tell with my clients, because a lot of my clients, I work with a lot of different people and everyone's schedule's different. And plus, let's be real. Is every sales day going to look the same?
No, they're random.
Or sometimes you have 2 or 3 clients in a row and you're like, I'm on a hot streak. You make 2 sales. You're like, then you have your third and then you're getting hungry. And then all of a sudden you're sitting there and you're kind of blanking out because you haven't eaten in a while. And you're like, man, I need to eat. And then now you're not 100% there. And you're like, I didn't get that last sale. So what I always say is the most important thing, are you eating the right amount of calories for your body throughout the day? Whether you eat 3 meals, some of my clients eat 3 meals, some of them eat 4, some of them eat 5. What I do is so I used to stutter really bad. So sometimes it pops up, but the most important thing is, I would always have a plan. So let's say you start with 3 meals a day, and then you notice that you're kind of crashing. Let's say your first meal is at 7 a.m. Okay. And then you notice that you're starving at like 11, you're starting to get hangry. And then your next meal is at 12. Well, since you started with 3 meals, maybe you need to have a little bit of snack, maybe a little bit of shake, a little bit of nut butter, or you can even put a little bit of oatmeal in there and it will soak up the water and it will actually taste pretty good if you mix it properly. So I always say everyone's a little bit different. It's more what you eat throughout the day. It's not as important frequency. I personally eat every 3 or 4 hours because that's how my body does well. But always start out with a plan. I would kind of check in with yourself once a week, see how you're going. If you notice that you're crashing at certain times, maybe that's a perfect time to have a healthy whole food snack, not or have something like a shake and maybe an apple, some protein source, an apple, and maybe a little bit of nut butter or a handful of nuts, something really easy that you can stick with.
Okay.
So it's going to be different for everyone, but I always say have at least 3 meals a day at minimum. If you're getting hungry or starving or hangry or your energy levels are crashing between then, that's a good signal that, hey man, I waited 6 hours. Maybe I should have a meal every 3 hours. Just kind of pay attention to how you're feeling. But start with a plan and then you can always modify it. Whatever, it's the same thing as whenever you're doing sales and you say, oh, I reached out, I did this many phone calls, then it converted this. We make decisions based on numbers, not emotions, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And track it.
Yeah.
Talking about numbers, so another thing that I think a lot of people track, calorie count. Is there a set calorie count, or should it be more of a sliding scale? Because like you said, I mean, there's nothing wrong with if you want to watch the Cowboys or the Longhorns or the Chiefs or Missouri and have a few pieces of pizza. That's fine. The one time a week. It just, that can't be the everyday option.
Yes.
Is there a hard calorie number, or should it be more of a sliding scale?
Every single person is a little bit different, but again, what can be tracked can be changed. So have a plan for the week. I'll just let you know, when I start with someone new, a lot of people that come to me they haven't been eating enough. Most people haven't been eating enough. And when I start having them eat whole foods, the first 2 or 3 weeks are like, man, this is hard to eat all the food. I'm like, but we're eating what you need. And after 2 or 3 weeks, they realize they don't grab as many cups of coffee because they don't need it. They're getting their energy from their foods. And
Sure.
so I actually start them a little bit higher. And then over time, and then after about 2 or 3 weeks, they get hungrier, meaning their metabolism's firing correctly. And so what we do is we increase energy first, and then we can lower it if they're trying to lose weight. But really to give you in general, what I usually do, just it's a lot more advanced than this, but most people should be able to lose body fat. If you multiply your weight by 10 to 12, most people should be able to lose in that range. Do I have to go below that for some people? Yes. It's just a good rough estimate. It is not like set in stone, but usually maintenance is around multiply your weight by 13 or 14. But everyone's different. But just know you have to take into account what you've been doing. If you've been eating 1,200 calories and maybe you're supposed to be eating 2,000, I wouldn't just go straight to 2,000. I might start someone at 1,500 and go slowly up. And that way they increase their energy levels. They get used to eating the food. But at the end of the day, most people do not eat enough. I can't just say, hey, 2,000 calories a day, because one person might be 300 pounds. One person might be 150 pounds. And sometimes the 150-pound person, their metabolism is so fast that they have to eat just as much as the 250-pound person that has a slow metabolism, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense, because here on my other show, LVWS Confidential, I talk with some of the top independent wrestlers in the country, and I talked with the Heartbeat Nick Zander. He's a champion in 4 different companies. He just started wrestling during COVID, started right at the beginning of COVID. He weighed 195 pounds.
Yeah.
Not overweight by any means, but his body fat percentage was through the roof.
Yep.
As he started working out, and now he's working out to be an athlete, so he was working out 9 hours a day.
Yeah,
he lost down to 155 pounds, and now he's back up at 215.
But lean, right?
Yeah, it's muscle.
Yeah.
So he was skinny fat, which I think happens a lot. There's a lot of people that are in that position. Their weight's not bad, but there's just no muscle mass. They just haven't done anything to build up strength, and you end up at an okay weight, but sky high body fat percentage, because through inactivity, and if you're not eating enough, right, your body will hold on to fat.
Exactly. It'll actually hurt you more, and that's why when people get on these crash diets, what I see a lot of people do is they'll see, oh, well, this person lost 20 pounds in a month, and I'm like, okay, I would rather you lose 1 or 2 pounds per week. And also it depends on, if someone's 400 pounds, if they lose 2 or 3 pounds a week, that's going to be a smaller percentage of their total body weight compared to someone trying to lose weight at 150 pounds, because maybe they're 410 and they have a little bit of body fat. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah. Well, and what I've seen too is you'll lose that initial weight the fastest, and then it starts getting hard. Maybe a year during off seasons, when I'd go back and you start conditioning again, lose 10, 15 pounds like that.
Yep.
Because now you're back to, doing the 2-a-days, running 4 miles, working out 4 hours. It just shaves right off of you. But then trying to lose the extra 8 pounds to hit weight was near impossible.
Yeah. Well,
because now you're getting close to that set point, I think.
Well, exactly. And there's a difference between just losing weight for a professional that needs this to work at a high level and being an athlete. Obviously, you're doing it for a different purpose and a reason, and your hierarchy of needs is going to be a little bit different, right?
Yeah, we don't have weight classes in sales.
Exactly. Well, the other thing is,
I'm sorry, you're out. You missed cut. Stake this guy. Yeah, that doesn't happen.
Yes, but the other thing I was going to talk about is when people go on these really low calorie diets. And I used to work at a medical office. I used to be a treatment coordinator. We were over, it was a men's office. So I was over ED, medical weight loss, and testosterone. We put people on a normal physiological level, nothing crazy, people who needed it. Right.
Yeah.
And I hated doing medical weight loss there because I put these people on 500 calorie diets. They would lose weight, but they come back, and it's not a long-term solution. People keep on focusing on surface level solutions when the root of the problem is, if someone's 400 pounds, not saying anything bad about someone, they don't believe in themselves. A lot of times we know what to do, but we eat the bad foods because we never think we're going to change. So what happens is people go on these extreme diets, and let's say this is your metabolism, the bigger caloric deficit you get, meaning that you're burning more calories than you're taking in, the faster the metabolic adaptation happens. So if you're in a caloric deficit of 1,000 calories, these are just arbitrary numbers, for example. This doesn't really matter. But if someone's on 1,000 calorie deficit, the bigger the deficit you are, the more likely you are to burn through muscle. And why do most people's metabolism get slow as you age? You know?
No, it
You
does
lose
though,
muscle
right?
mass as you age usually. So the more muscle mass you have, the easier it is to maintain your level of body fat and that weight. But what
Because
happens when you
muscle burns more than fat.
exactly, and I like the more muscle you have, the more calories you just burn at rest. But what happens when you get on these diets, these extreme diets? I like to say meal plan because the diet's just temporary. I want to teach people how to actually do this long term, where they can run through the finish line and maintain it, not just get there, fall on their face, gain all of it back, and now they're in a worse position because they lost all their muscle mass, and now they're even heavier and have more body fat than they do. And now mentally, how do you think they feel about themselves? Where do you think their energy levels are at? How confident are they going to be on the sales floor when they're like, shit, I lost 30 pounds. Now I gained 50 back. I feel even more, some people say skinny fat. And I'm not dissing anybody. I'm just saying I see this over and over.
Yeah.
So instead, if we focused on losing even half a pound to 2 or 3 pounds per week max, and we do that consistently, we maintain all our muscle mass. Now you're going to run through the finish line, maintain it. And now you're not going to be skinny fat when you lose all the weight. You're going to actually have some shape. And it's not just about looks, it's about quality of life. That's the most important thing. And that's why I keep on bringing this up.
And consistency is super important.
The most important thing.
Any sales training you look at the heart of it is having a process, having a game plan, having a strategy. That's why all the sports analogies work so well, because you don't go into a match, a game, a tournament with just saying, hey, I'm just going to go wing it. We'll see what happens. You have a plan, you have a strategy, you follow it to its conclusion. And then if it doesn't work, then you make some adjustments. It's not the end of the day. There's a reason why. Here, another pro sports analogy I used to do, Morning Drive Sports Radio. I covered all the major league teams. People who watch the games think, and I'm just going to ask you, as a former D1 athlete, the pro athletes, when they lose, they're not devastated. They may be a little upset, but they look at it and go, okay, hey, we need to do better. We need to change this. We need to change that. The fans are going, oh, why aren't they going crazy? Why aren't they do this? Why aren't they do that? Because it doesn't work.
Over. But no, what you do as an athlete is, what do? You had a system, you can see what's broken, and with the data, we can make adjustments. It's the same thing with sales. I'll be honest with you. When I first started sales, I stuttered so bad I forced myself to do it because I knew I wanted to own my own company, and now I turned a weakness into a strength. Now I can actually communicate effectively. I don't stutter unless I start thinking about it. But I had to make a ton of phone calls at first, and I would shake. My heart would be beating out of my chest. And luckily, I had a manager say, she's like, what's your biggest fear? Because we pick, basically I was an account manager, and she's like, I love that you're an XD1 athlete. You haven't talked to me. And if you're going to go to the campaign team, we actually have to pick you. We have to pick you. Why haven't you come talk to me? I was like, well, I don't have as much experience as everyone else. And she's like, what are you most afraid? I was like, I just stuttered. And I just want to learn because I want to own my own business someday. And she grabbed my hand. She's like, don't worry, we're going to work on this together. So she made me sit by her. And every day she would be like, Michael, we don't say can't. Say, I will do this, or this is what we can do for you. Redirecting. It's all like, but anyway, I went from being terrible, and I'll listen to her sales calls, and she'd be like, oh, what was that? That was terrible. And she kept on working on it. But guess what? When you have a method, then you can make small changes, and eventually you'll get to where you want to go. It's the same thing with nutrition. There's not going to be a perfect nutrition plan for anyone. We have a certain amount of calories, certain amount of inputs, a certain amount of workouts, resistance training, cardio, all these things. And then guess what? If someone doesn't lose that weight week, we'll add a few minutes of cardio. We'll make small adjustments to get them to where they want to go. Not drastic change. Your body doesn't like drastic change. It freaks you out. It's the same thing as whenever someone's starts sales, you're not going to have, you start small and then build them up over time, right?
Yeah, because otherwise they'll flame out and just think they can't make it, and then they're gone.
Exactly. Or also you're not going to have them start, selling McLaren P1s from the get-go, right? You're going to start, used cars. The stakes are a lot smaller, and they build up over time. It's the same thing in so many areas of life, business, everything.
Yeah. Well, we'll kind of wrap it down here. Got our custom belts here. You can get these for your dealerships. Just reach out to Dealership Rescue. Nice custom championship belts, and give one to your top new car salesman, top used car salesman, gross. Just give them something to strive for. So the championship idea of the week is to be ready for the game. You get ready for the game by practicing, by conditioning, by making that commitment to yourself to be in shape. I know I feel dramatically better being at this point. Like I said, I weighed myself last night 45 pounds lighter than a couple of years ago.
I feel good about that. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, and you can see all the health numbers. I mean, it makes a huge difference. You just have a lot more energy. So, talking with Michael Wilcoxon, former Texas Longhorn, HulkBuilt personal training. Michael, what would you say would be your championship idea of the week for people in the sales profession?
I think the championship thing is really just be consistent, have a system, make small changes over time. Even if you think you suck at something, just know one thing I highly encourage you to do is just say, I'm not good at that yet. And eventually you will become good at it through reps, period.
Because you can turn a weakness into a strength if you work on it enough.
If I can overcome stuttering and becoming a top salesperson at multiple companies, which I did not tell you about before this call, y'all can do it. I couldn't even talk to my family on the phone, and I was able to do that. So if I can own a company now and help people at a high level from stuttering, y'all can do it. I promise you can.
Well, and you just did almost an hour on live television, and I think this is the first time, maybe this is the second time we've actually spoken. A couple times over chat and then one time on the phone.
Yeah.
So no, it's all super impressive, and I really, really believe it's super important, and it's something that you can commit to because the auto industry has changed. When I started in auto sales in 2003, you'd still go out and do figure eights at the lot. I would walk 8 or 9 miles a day on the lot.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen anymore because thanks to the internet, because of COVID, because of inventory shortages, it's become much more of a desk job where you're calling, emailing, and texting prospects rather than walking out there, or in some cases, we used to sprint out there to meet the customer at the car because I wanted to run ahead of the other salespeople.
Yeah.
You can't do that anymore. You're not able to do just figure eights of the lot. And, I wouldn't go sit down at my desk until I sold 3 cars in a day. That doesn't happen anymore. If you did that, you'd be walking 15 miles and probably leaving. So it's super important now to do that conditioning and ingrain that habit so you have a base so you can operate moving forward. And again, just to wrap up, the best way to reach you, Michael, at HulkBuilt is Facebook and then Instagram.
Yes, on Instagram at HulkBuilt, HULKBUILT, just like on my hat right here. Or if you're listening, HULKBUILT on Instagram or Facebook. You can either DM me, add me as a friend. I also have a Facebook group called Weight Loss Secrets for Busy Professionals. For many of you doing sales, if you're just a super busy professional, anybody that is really just looking to improve yourself, have a better quality of life, and find a long, sustainable solution. If you're tired of service level solutions that are temporary and you want something long term, you want to learn how to do this on your own and eventually not even have to use a coach, then come to me.
And just speaking personally, you're a great person just to reach out to and talk. I really appreciated the advice you gave me. I was looking at going back, having a yearly checkup, and I wanted to ask the doctor about different medicines, what the metabolic rates were, how those medications may factor into weight loss or weight gain. And I really do appreciate the help you gave. Super easy to talk to and really well informed. And I didn't even know you were a Texas Longhorn. So
yeah,
that's, I mean, you're like one step from the NFL. So that's a pretty good level. You're up in the Big 12. You're playing high level college sports.
Yeah, it was back. I played with Earl Thomas, Colt McCoy. Unfortunately, I ended up getting a concussion. That's why I had to stop playing.
Okay.
The athletic numbers were there. I could jump over 40 inches. I could I was super strong and had a lot of power, but I played D tackle. I probably should have played linebacker or been a big fullback. But overall, I think things tend to work out. It led me to what I'm doing now. I wouldn't change a thing.
Excellent. And here, one more, since it's wrestling with sales, one more wrestling tie-in. You were in the Big 12 then about the same time as Keith Lee, but I think he was at Texas A&M.
Texas A&M. And yes, and what's funny is one of my clients ended up being, he was an offensive lineman. I played against him. I played D tackle. He was O-line. He was actually one of my good clients for a few years.
Really?
Kind of funny. Yeah, but it was a friendly rivalry. We would always joke around when he would come. I used to do in-person training. Now I do online only. But yeah, I would always tease him about going to A&M. But he was one of my. I don't like to have favorites. I love all my clients, but he was awesome. I like working with him a lot, so it was kind of funny. Yeah.
Great. Hey, I'll put the links in the comment pages. You can find out more about HulkBuilt. Definitely reach out to Michael. Thanks again for joining me today. Really do appreciate it. Hopefully it helps some people, get you motivated to get started, to get in shape, because it is important. You have to have the stamina. You got to be able to go the whole 60 minutes. And the words of Ric Flair, you got to be a 60-minute man. Got to make it all the way to the top of Space Mountain to hit the championship level in sales. Until next week, we'll be back on Wrestling with Sales. Subscribe to us on YouTube, and you can always reach out at dealershiprescue.net. Thanks again, Michael. I appreciate you stepping in the ring.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Sure.